This lecture continues the events of Pakistan Movement 1906 to 1940. It discusses the Khilafat Movement, Simon Commission, Nehru Report, Jinnah's 14 Points, and the Round Table Conference. Let's begin with the Khilafat Movement. The Khilafat Movement of 1919 to 1924 was an agitation by the Indian Muslims allied with the Indian nationalism in the years following World War I. Its purpose was to pressurize the British government to preserve the authority of the Ottoman Sultan as Caliph of Islam, following the breakup of the Ottoman Empire at the end of the war. The movement came to an end after the incident of Chora-Chori, in which the police opened fire on the procession of residents. The Ali brothers and other Muslim leaders were arrested. Gandhi put off the movement. After World War I, it was felt that a civil disobedience movement might be launched, jointly by the Congress and Muslim League, to compel the British to accelerate the reforms. Edwin Montagu was the Secretary of State for India, and Lord Chelmsford was the new Governor-General at the time. Montagu, in collaboration with Chelmsford, collected the data and made a report about the constitutional reforms in 1918, which was later approved by the Parliament. The bill was introduced in India in 1919, which became the Indian Council Act of 1919. As for the reaction, the Congress did not participate in the election of 1920 under the 1919 Act. The Muslim League did not reject the act as Congress did, but then they did not participate in the election because of the understanding with the Congress. Thus, some benefits which the act could yield were reaped by the Hindu alone. The British government appointed a group named Simon Commission in November 1927, led by Stanley Baldwin, to report on the working of the Indian Constitution under the Act of 1919. The commission consisted of 7 members. The commission was boycotted by the Indian National Congress and most other Indian political parties. It accepted the idea of federalism and sought to retain direct contact between the British Crown and the Indian states. Moving on to the Nehru Report. As most of the Indian political parties decided to boycott the Simon Commission, an all-parties conference, APC, was held at Delhi in January 1928. In the first round, the conference failed to conclude the issues of the rights of minorities. In the second round, the result was not different from the first session. The third round was held to determine the essential features for the future Constitution of India. A committee of 7 members was formed under the chairmanship of Motilal Nehru. The Nehru Committee completed its task and gave a report, commonly known as Nehru Report, and presented it to the APC in the 4th session held in August 1928. The main points of the Nehru Report were: there should be a federal form of government in India with residuary powers to be vested in the center. There will be no separate electorate for minorities. The system of weightage should not be adopted for any province. There should be no reserved seats for communities in Punjab and Bengal. In the 4th session of the APC convened in December to review the Nehru Report, Jinnah, representing the Muslim League, presented 4 amendments in the report. Quaid-e-Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah declared his famous 14 points in March 1929 at the annual session of the All India Muslim League. The points are as follows. The form of the future constitution should be federal, with the residuary powers to be vested in the provinces. A uniform measure of autonomy shall be granted to all provinces. All legislatures in the country and other elected bodies shall be constituted on the definite principle of etiquette and effective representation of minorities in every province, without reducing the majority in any province to a minority or even equality. In the central legislature, Muslim representation shall not be less than 1/3. Representation of communal groups shall continue to be by separate electorates. Any territorial redistribution that might at any time be necessary shall not in any way affect the Muslim majority in the Punjab, Bengal, and the NWFP. Full religious liberty shall be granted to all communities. No bill or resolution or any part thereof shall be passed in any legislature or any other elected body if 3/4 of the members of the community in that particular body oppose such a bill, resolution, or part thereof, on the ground that it would be injurious to that community. Sindh should be separate from the Bombay Presidency. Reforms should be introduced in the NWFP and Balochistan on the same footing as in other provinces. Provision should be made in the Constitution giving Muslims an adequate share along with the other Indians in all the services of the state and local self-governing bodies, having due regard to the requirements of efficiency. The Constitution should embody adequate safeguard for the protection of Muslim culture and the protection and promotion of Muslim education, language, religion, and personal laws, and Muslim charitable institutions and their due share in the grants and aid given by the state and by the self-governing bodies. No cabinet, either central or provincial, should be formed without there being a promotion of at least 1/3 Muslim ministers. No change shall be made in the Constitution by the central legislature, except with the concurrence of the states constituting the Indian Federation.